Hey everyone, it's Matt with Downrange. It's been a while since I've done any kind of an update on YouTube. That's not because I'm not working on them. It's because I have been working like crazy on the actual plane itself. I have literally dozens of hours of footage now that I'm actually creeping through. You're going to get a couple of build videos. I think the last one was kind of a minor, unexciting one where I was just doing table modifications and stuff like that and getting the jigs mounted into place. So it wasn't really a true construction video. There is one I'm currently working on, which is the fuselage construction. It's just taking time. I have to go through all of the segments. It's literally hours and hours of work. So my apologies for no update there. Now, with that being said, this is going to be a quick and dirty update of everything I've done to date, just because we haven't had one in a while. So we're going to include everything that I've done, top to bottom, that hasn't ever been seen before. Show some of the problems that I've run into, some of the other stuff, and then some of the questions that I currently have. And then stay tuned for everything that's happening after that, because in the next couple of weeks when I get those build videos done, which are going to show the entire progress of the construction, you'll be able to watch those, and there'll be some additional commentary about some specifics there. But this is just going to be a relatively quick video, just kind of covering all the relevant stuff. So I'm going to get out from the front of the camera here, show you the actual aircraft, show you the stuff that we're working on and how that's going, and we'll go from there. So let's get at it. And all right, if you haven't seen it in a while, let me give you an overview. So here we're at. We're kind of a mess because I'm literally working on this thing damn near every day. So the important parts that we have rolling. One, as you can see, it is no longer in the jigs and it is no longer flat. I think the last actual true build video was just doing the individual sides of this guy right here. As you can see, they're done. So the sides are done and in place. Had the jigs up and in place until about last week. We finally pulled the fuselage out of the jig itself. So some things about the actual build process. So once we actually had the jigs in place, you'll see this in the build video. The way the plans talk about doing the jig, let me see if I have it over here. I might even be able to pull it up real quick. Like I said, I'm working pretty much nonstop on this thing. That is for skinning material. We're not quite there yet. So the jigs, they're these U-shaped jigs, and they want a cross member across the top. And here's the dimensions that they suggest for the jigs for these build outs. Well, as it turns out, the vertical component here, not tall enough for the P40 Warhawks. It's a problem. So the jigs only came out to about here in height. They needed an additional 4 inches of vertical to be effective. That was not possible. Additionally, see that downward slope? That part's accurate. There's no upward slope, however. Mine is a completely straight back. When we put it on the plans, put it on a tape line, exactly the same thing. So I actually, and you'll be able to tell from this view, have a flat topped aircraft because this is in fact upside down in the frame. Little challenges I didn't realize until we were actually starting construction. Not a big deal. I did make sure, though, that when these got installed in the jig and everything got clamped up and we started putting support pieces in there, that everything came out square. Great indicator of it is... Yeah, she came out real good. I put a scale. Is it perfect? Probably not, but it's pretty darn close. I'm not foreseeing any major issues from that standpoint. Other things that are kind of important is making sure these gaps are big enough. Both sides of these are not perfectly identical. They're very, very close because this is where the wing spar, the main wing spar, is going to go in and through. But it'll fit the completed wing spar once it's skinned and all that good jazz. So that'll be really nice. Rear wing spar, same thing. The gap is appropriate that I'll be able to get it through. I might actually have to add some shimming material. Not the end of the world there. When I started doing the cross members, so instead of doing the recommended wooden clamps that they have in here, I just used these. I have a ton of the full length ones sitting on the floor over in the corner, so I just used those. So the way I did this was I started in the front here, put all those horizontals in from about cockpit, that one, forward. So right where my scarf joints were, forward to the bottom, well, top I guess is what it technically is because it's upside down. Got those in place, epoxied them, and then came back and did the bottom. So here, cockpit rearward. Once we got done with that, Then here, back got done. And I think I did most of the top and bottom at the same time at that point, because that was pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. So that all got assembled. It's all pretty darn close to square, like I mentioned. So I'm pretty stoked about how that turned out. I left this long. I haven't trimmed them. In the plans, they said trim those early, but I did not. I don't think there was a major benefit to me trimming those early. Plus, once I get closer to building the vertical stabilizer, I kind of wanted this in place so I could make the determination where specifically I wanted to cut these for length. So that hasn't been done yet. Like I said, I'm not in a big hurry to. That's coming very, 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 very soon. All right, where are we at then? So we got all the horizontals in place. Some of the challenges on these is just fitting. I didn't have my sander with when I was doing these. I was literally just trimming them on the actual saw, because that's been 90% of the work, but I actually have a little belt sander that I use at the store. I borrowed that, and when I was doing some of the fitting on some of the gusset work, that was actually super, super helpful. So I'm going to keep going on that. Building this thing in the jig was not totally crazy. Like I said, I ended up just using the compression clamps, which worked great. I didn't have any seam pops or any joint pops, which this book and I think the other book I have kind of talked about, that when you're putting them in the jig, you'll occasionally have joints give. I don't know if I over epoxied or what, or just got lucky, but no popping sounds. Everything's held together. We didn't have to redo anything. I do periodically fog some of the joints if there are gaps, because every now and again you get one like that guy right there. That has been fogged thoroughly, so that is completely full of epoxy. In hindsight, probably should have made a better cut, but this was also the first side that I ever did. So this is probably the least awesome one, but it's very, very solid. I've put a lot of weight on this thing now. Zero issue to speak of. Once all that has been glued up like it was, moved over to some of the extra support material. So doubled up on the 3/4 by 3/4 blocks, installed those as was required. That was pretty straightforward. And then I got into the gusseting stuff. This is where one of the challenges came, because this was very, very confusing on the plans. Actually, let me see if I can shift this a little. There we go. So this is one of the points of confusion here in the plans. To me, you have the solid line right here, which is the block that goes on the top. And it's right there. And there's this dotted line, which is very, very unclear. It kind of says rudder block, kind of doesn't. And there's a solid line there with a very, very lack of clarity as to what that is. I had to dig through a couple other planes to figure this one out. This might have been obvious to people who've done this before, but I am an amateur builder here. First time building an airplane, so all new concept for me. This, I do believe the dotted line is just the engine mount, because there are actually metal plates that are going to go here on three sides that are triangle blocks. They're going to go here, here, and here. They're welded together and mounted into place, and that's actually the physical engine mount. And then one goes on each corner there. Pretty sure that's what that dotted line is, just to kind of show, hey, that's what this is and where it's at and what it's doing. The flat block does, in fact, go on the bottom. Those are our mounting platforms or our rudder pedal assembly. So that's 3/4 ply, cut, fit, shaped into place, 2 extra supports. I'm assuming that's just for the floor support. Not sure specifically what that mount is for, or if there's going to be something mounted to that yet at this point. I'm still going through plans. Let's see, what else did we get mounted up? Because that was super important. Then we did the side gussets as well. The plans, the side plans that show the gussets, not super clear because they have silhouetted cuts outside of the plans to show you what size and shape they're supposed to be. Yeah, they don't match the physical plans themselves, and they don't match what actually happened in reality. I've got a pretty good idea based off of, and you can see them right there, the joints don't match with anything else. So what I ended up doing is basing them off of the intent that they are going to be what the engine mount is going to mount to. So since I've got that steel triangle that's going to come right here that gets bolted in, that helps hold the engine mount to the front of this, that's where I'm going off the assumption that those need to be based off of. So I trimmed those accordingly. Some of the other features that I had to add on to this sucker. So external fuel tank. They keep talking about, there's all these segments on there about an external fuel tank and optional parts. We are going to put an external fuel tank. unlike the plans, which says it's going to be a dummy tank, we're actually going to, or at least my intent is to build a functioning belly tank for this. So it has, and the plans even say you can convert the dummy tank into an actual tank. So that's what we're going to do. So it asks for a few extra support pieces. It has these two little nubs right here that have the A on them. Those are going to be mounting points for the support arms that hold and stabilize the tank. These thicker components here, same animal. They are additional supports for that. That's what they're in place for. And then I believe this rib as well is for the tank as well, because one of these ribs is not a required part for the standard build out, or for the tank mount it is, and I think it is this one. So that's going to go into place. How we're going to mount that, whether it's permanent, removable, whatever, I'm going to mess with that when I get a little further down the line. Already kind of playing around with that idea. I'm going to learn how to fiberglass in the fuel tank. I figure if I'm going to learn and screw stuff up, I'd rather be in a fuel tank that's easy to rebuild and replace, as opposed to learning how to fiberglass on this wonderful thing. Like, oh, I screwed it up. Fabulous. Yeah, not going to happen. We're going to try to do this the right way. So that's all kind of in place and ready to go. Pretty happy how that one turned out. Structurally, the rest of it has been very, very sound. Like I said, I've messed around with it, put a decent amount of weight on it, put the square on it, and it's pretty trued up. It's pretty trued up. There's some parts that are not perfect, but you can see that going across the top. There are some that are slightly low versus slightly high and a little twisted, but for the most part, they're squared and even going through. It turned out really, really good. This all squared up. I didn't even realize this dribbled low a little bit. Might have to break that out, cut that out, and redo that. We'll see. So we got all that done. The next question, I guess, is the best thing to do is these parts right here. So there is a A1 component that goes here and an A1 component that goes here in the plans. I sketched out, let's see if I can do this without too much garbage in the way. So you can see where it's supposed to get cut out here, here, and here. Like I said, there were drawings that were not part of the direct blueprint. They were just kind of like silhouettes in the separate portion of the plan where you could kind of trace it out, cut the part, and then apply it to where it needed to belong. And this is the shape. I cut it exactly to that, and then there's going to be a little cutout here, a little cutout here, a little cutout here. Well, when I actually put it on their plans, it was about an 1/8 inch shorter than what the silhouetted diagram was. So it's like, all right, let's mark and modify that, and then we'll just bump the notch out. And then when I threw it on here on the real plan, it's actually a little shorter than that still too. So you can see there's a little extra material. So I've got to, before I start cutting those notches out, these I'll leave as is. I'll cut everything from this side. I'm going to figure out exactly what these notches are supposed to be here for purpose-wise. And when I figure that out, I'll determine if this is one of those things where I should just measure from where the bottom cut it to length, and then measure that notch from there, or if I'm going to have to change something else. Because I know height-wise and the gap from here to here is right because I built these right off of the side of the plans. I mean, they were exact. I didn't lose 1/4 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch anywhere. But somehow we lost it here. No idea why. I don't know why that would have been drawn differently, but it was. But we're going to figure that out. If anybody has any suggestions as to what those notches are specifically going to be, please send me a note. The notches are technically going to get covered up anyway, just because that's where the engine mounts are going to go. I didn't notice anything obvious in the firewall plan because maybe it's just cord control, and that's where our vacuum is going to go and all that stuff. If that's the case, cool. I'd just be nice to figure out exactly what that is going to pertain to specifically, so I can get that cut and glued. Because I would love the next step to be to cut, trim, then mount into place and get that epoxied, and then the whole front chunk here is done. Next on the agenda is more gusseting. So we've got some gusseting here. We've got a bunch of gusseting that's going to go in here. That's kind of next on the agenda. Once all the gussets are done, not just that. So the gusseting there, that's next on the agenda. And then all of the inserts back here. So I believe, and don't hold me to this, I'm not looking at the blueprint. I believe it's from M back here. I'm going to start putting in the inserted component. So there'll be a 3/16. Yeah, 3/30 seconds. 3/30 seconds played here, 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 and I believe here and here. It might go all the way to the back, I'm not sure. But either way, there's internal ones that are going to go there. It's basically heavy duty, the thicker skinning material. That's what we're going to go into. So I'm going to probably start cutting those today along with the rest of the gussets. Once all that stuff's done, before I do the finished covering and skinning, I'll probably call the FAA and confirm if they want to come out and do an initial inspection. The last phone call, it sounded like they do a lot less inspections these days, but I'm going to find out exactly where and when they want them. So if they want one when this thing is unskinned, look at the frame. We're going to get that kind of squared away and done. So I'm hoping by the end of the day to have all of these gussets done, ready to roll, and then those as well, because I'm going to get those glued up, or at least one face of them glued up. And then I probably should do the J-bar here, which is the seat support. I believe, here it is. There you go. So J3, J2, that I believe is a part of our, no, it's not seat support. It is structural though. I believe seatbelt, some of the harness mounting hardware goes on that, but there's this beam that goes right across here that is going to mount, if memory serves, right here. Let's see. Nope, we're in the right neck of the woods here. So yeah, it goes from here to here, and then there's some plywood standoffs that kind of lock everything in place. That'll actually go here and then along here as well. So there's actually going to be a bar that will drop straight down and then come straight back in level with that. We'll get that figure out how that's all kind of going to go into place, and then get that squared away. So I want to do that all before it gets skinned, because boy, would that be a pain in the butt to do after. Plus, once this gets skinned, it gets sealed, protected, all that good jazz, and then the fuselage will be pretty much done until we're ready to cut out space here and here to do our wing spar installs. Wing spar material is on order. It should be getting shipped hopefully this week. If it is, I'll give them a call this week or maybe early next week. Give them a jingle and find out what the status on that is, because we're counting down days here on this part here. So once this part's done and skinned, we're on to wing spar. So hopefully we can get that going sooner than later. But yeah, that's the big video so far. So like I said, there's gonna be a bunch of build videos to come that's gonna show all this stuff. Everybody who's been tuning in and watching, thank you. Sorry for the long delay. I'm trying to learn a new video editor because my old one could not handle some of the things that I was doing with these. But you're gonna get a lot of actual build construction video stuff coming up. So they're gonna be a little out of order. My apologies for that one. But this is a good overall to kind of show you what we're working on. So if anybody has any advice on these two verticals, I believe there's A1, the two A1s, the front face. Anybody has any advice on that, by all means, throw them in the comments. But I appreciate the watch and appreciate the support. Everybody have a great and safe weekend.